Bardown Beauties with Jesse Pierce and Kirsten Kroll. Two hockey minds trapped in bodies that can't skate. They may have never laced them up, but they'll break it all down with sharp takes and plenty of laughs. This is Hockey Talk, the Beauties way.
Hello, good morning, happy Monday. No, don't adjust your screens. That isn't Kirsten Kroll joining me if you are watching on our YouTube version. I am Jesse Pierce, however, but joining us, very special guest host while Kirsten enjoys some time away in the sunshine of Florida. We've got Mr. Kevin Gorg. KG, buddy, how are we?
Jesse, we're great. Good morning. Great to be here. I hope Double K is having an awesome time down in Florida. I was there about 3 weeks ago seeing my grandson. It was in the 50s. And now it's in the 80s. My timing wasn't great, but hers is spectacular, so I'm happy she's doing that.
Getting a little bit of unwind time before the NHL season commences back up. PWHL season commences back up. But we get a lot of celebratory moments in between. KG, Olympics. We got to talk about it. I want to start with the women's because we got double gold here for those unaware for the United States. Both men's and women's bringing the gold home, defeating Canada, both teams in overtime. Huge moment for USA hockey. Let's start with the women. It was a couple days ago now, but they did it first behind some phenomenal goaltending all tournament. Erin Frankel, I did not know how good she was, but Hillary Knight gets the tying goal in the waning moments. And then obviously Megan Keller with the OT. How exciting was that women's game, KG, for you?
Yeah, it worked out great. Now, a little different script on the women's side because they were heavily favored coming into this tournament. And it's been all about two teams for since it started back in 1998. It's been Canada or the U.S., and Canada's had the upper hand. Now, this particular Olympics, the U.S. had dominated all the prelims on the way into the tournament. They beat them 5-0 in the first round when that was a game to kind of set up the elimination part of the tournament. But give Canada a ton of credit. They got Marie-Philippe Poulin back. She's their best player. She's their captain. And speaking of goaltending, Desbiens in goal for Canada was simply unbelievable in that game. She had a really great bounce-back performance. And I think it worked out great the way it ended up, Jesse, because if it was another 5-0 game, it would have been fun. It would have been cool. We would have had gold for the USA. But the way the game played out, the fact that Canada played the near perfect game, they had the upset going for 58 minutes. The U.S. had to pull their goaltender, Hillary Knight, with that unbelievable deflection to tie it up. And then to see our homegrown talent, Taylor Heise, make the great stretch pass, trying to catch Canada on a change in overtime to set up the game-winning goal. I thought it just made for a magical viewing. And I think it made it a little bit more special in terms of the juice that it had.
And Hillary Knight getting that tying goal was the perfect narrative because she sets the record for points in an Olympics, surpassing Natalie Darwitz, who has held that record for so long, our very own Natalie Darwitz. And it's in Hillary Knight's final Olympics, too. Just what a whirlwind for her. And then I love that you mentioned Taylor Heise's pass, too, because in a lot of the clips shown, you see Megan Keller, which phenomenal move, right? Absolutely amazing to deke it out and get the toe drag for the victory. But if Taylor Heise does not have that wherewithal to get that puck up to Keller to spring her, that play doesn't happen.
Really gutsy pass. And back to Hillary Knight. I've had the pleasure of watching her for a long time as a fan of the game and certainly a fan of hers. She's all class. And really, I think to your point, poetic that she gets the biggest goal of all in that tournament. Without that goal, they end up with silver. And so really hard play to make, kind of in that spot where we see Jewel Eriksson-Ek for the Wild constantly right in front of the blue paint in traffic. Trying to maneuver to get a deflection like that is not easy to do. And she's just been an unbelievable talent and just such a great leader on and off the ice for the red, white, and blue. Now to the winning goal. Taylor Heise is a player that, she scores big goals, but I think she's developed into a player that's become a real playmaker, whether it's with the Frost or obviously with Team USA. And that play in particular is all about reading the situation. She's at the tail end of her shift. She gets the puck behind the net in a 3-on-3 situation and sees that Canada is trying to get fresh troops on the ice. That's an aggressive play. That's a play where you trust your teammate to do something when she gets it. And then the finish was unbelievable. Kind of like Matt Boldy, one of those plays that's kind of a standalone, super talented play. And I think the icing on the cake for what was a really, really fun tournament to watch.
And to beat Claire Thompson, who PWHL fans are familiar with, Minnesota Frost fans likely familiar with, one of the top defensemen that we had seen enter the league last year, was poached by in the PWHL expansion, so no longer with the Frost. But I mean, she's a phenomenal defenseman. In that photo at the end where you see that triumph of Megan Keller and victory, and Bruce Bennett capturing Claire Thompson on the ground and in agony. I mean, that's kind of the Olympics, right? That's sports. That's what we love, is just this emotion. And it's incredible for USA Hockey women's. We've seen the resources that they have put into the women's game and how much it's always been Canada and the US. Still, the US continues to grow and grow and grow and expand in all areas. And this year's Olympics in particular, Gorgie, I felt for the women's side, it was very much a passing of the torch. Hillary Knight announcing her retirement. You had your staples, Lee Steckline and Kelly Panic, and those people that have been around, Kendall Coyne, Schofield. But then you've got Layla Edwards and you have Caroline Harvey and these young up and coming superstars as well, kind of being able to take that torch, take those reins for USA Hockey on the women's side.
Yeah, I think the youth on the American side served them really well throughout that tournament. One of the names, and again, you can rattle off 8 of them, but Abby Murphy stands out as a player who plays here locally for the Gophers that had an outstanding tournament. However, when you get into that one-game format, all the chips on the table, gold medal on the line, the veteran presence of Team Canada, I thought, made such a difference in that hockey game. You could feel, literally watching that game, the pressure mounting on the Americans. So I do kind of think it's fitting that their elder statesperson, Hillary Knight, in her 5th Olympics, she's able to go out there and make the game-breaking play to allow it to get to overtime. And I think the bottom line is, everybody was watching, over 5 million viewers. And so a lot like what we saw yesterday with the men's gold medal game, is hockey's the big winner leaving the Olympics. I mean, all the Olympics is a great reminder of how much we love sports and how much these storylines are so incredible in all different genres. But for us specifically, Jesse, who work in the game of hockey, I think the big winner was our sport. Like, I think we're going to bring more casual sports fans to the game. And what we saw on the women's side and then on the men's side, being that we're here in the States, just made it that much more incredible.
And even more special for the women's side is now fans that are just tuning into women's hockey maybe have an opportunity to go continue to follow these players that they're now familiar with, the Abby Murphys. They can continue to watch college hockey. You can continue to watch Hillary Knight and Taylor Heisey on the PWHL stage. That is so huge for the women's game and the growth on that side.
Yeah, the PWHL has been an unbelievable asset for the women's game and the girls' game. I go back to when I was coaching in the late 90s into the early 2000s, and really the goal for all the top players was, would they one day get a chance to play for their country, which is really, really cool. But there was never the chance for them to play professionally and get paid to play the game that they love. Now we have an established league, and there's been other leagues that popped up, but this one feels different. This one feels a lot like the WNBA, which has had so much incredible success promoting women's basketball. And this league looks like it's got longevity. They expanded from 6 to 8. It looks like they're going to go from 8 to 12 teams. The buildings are drawing big crowds. They're in great hockey markets, and the talent continues to come. There is a wave of young talent. You mentioned some of those names that are currently playing college hockey that are going to be the next stars that we're going to see on the stage at the different drafts, and they're going to be a part of this league. And this league is strong right now, and I think right now, sky's the limit. And I think we're lucky locally here in the cornfields in the Twin Cities to have the Minnesota Frost back-to-back Walter Cup champions. And even though their roster has seen some players because of expansion leave, the core of that team, the core of those championships is still here. And they look like another, again, group this year that's got a chance to win it. And so I think, having watched the women's game during the Olympics, I think there are a lot of fans now that are going to say, hey, you know what? Those tickets are affordable. There are seats that are available. We can sit in the lower bowl. We can bring our family out there and have a great time. There's a lot of, matinee games on the weekends. And so I think you're going to see that catch a little flyer here and a little momentum as well down the stretch and into the playoffs once again for Minnesota.
Give them a little bump, a little love. We love the Frost, as you guys all know. Abby Murphy, I watched her a couple weeks ago with the Gophers score that incredible goal, right, where she just absolutely dominates.
Yes.
Bill Guerin mentioned at the Olympics how that's his new favorite player. No surprise, because Abby Murphy is exactly the type of player, Gorgie, that I think you and I both know that Billy G covets, right?
Yeah, she does. She's got a little Ryan Hartman to her game. She's got incredible hands. She's got great skill, but she definitely plays out on that edge. Something that Bill Guerin always talks about is something he looks for when he builds a roster. And so I love it. I love all the buzz that she got. I love all the attention she got. The goal you're talking about went viral. And for women's college hockey, that doesn't happen very often. And when I say viral, I mean everybody on all sides at the pro level. We're watching it. We're talking about it. So pretty impressive to see that kid make that kind of a splash and then have the tournament that she had. For many stretches during the prelims, I thought she was the Americans' best player. So certainly the future is bright for this kid. She's going to end up being a star at the PWHL level. Whoever gets her is going to have a wonderful, wonderful hockey player.
Yeah, and she's done it a couple times where she's gone viral because she's just an incredible. She's always kind of down in that area. She's got that gritty and that feistiness, but she has the pure talent as well to maneuver the puck. And I love yesterday, even more so than love watching Matt Boldy score that first goal very early on to put the Americans ahead. I love the amount of people, Gorgie, that had reached out to me and were like, that was kind of like Abby Murphy, what she's done, or that's kind of like the connection now being drawn in the parallels between the men's and the women's game is at one of the highest points I've ever seen it.
Yeah, and I think here in the States, you're going to see everybody kind of rally around that because what we watched last week brought everybody together, right? Both the women's and the men's game were both so dramatic and so intense that for a while, all of us in this country that have dealt with all this division, right? The left and the right and the politics, especially here in Minnesota, for just at least for a day anyway, all that was put aside and we were all on the same team cheering together. Bars and restaurants were packed, TVs were on, ratings were up. And to me, that made it most special because I'm happiest when we're all on the same page, when we're all together. I don't get into politics. I know you're a sports girl. You don't get into that mumbo jumbo. And I loved it. It brought the country together. And I just loved the way it played out. Both those games were so intense and so exciting that you almost had to catch your breath. And that's what you need. That's what draws us to watching the sports that we love.
Exactly. And it's a little bit sweeter when you can bring home gold. No doubt about it. Again, women's claiming gold, men's as well. Let's start with Bill Guerin. There has to be such a level of vindication for him with the amount of criticism and questions surrounding that roster construction, as you'd mentioned, leaving off the Cole Caulfields, the Jason Robertsons, the quote unquote top end talent that American hockey players. While yes, I think they could have helped, I never once questioned Billy Gorgie. And I think maybe that's because we know what he does, right? We know how Bill Guerin operates. And you saw why JT Miller and Vincent Trocheck were so important to this roster because the penalty kill, for one, 18 for 18, that's incredible.
Yeah, without the penalty kill, they don't win gold. It's pretty much that simple. And to think that they survived a 5-on-3 situation against Team Canada pretty much blows me away because as I watched the tournament, the one thing I knew watching Canada is if you took penalties and they had a 5-on-4 situation, it looked like a video game and you couldn't stop them. And so to give them a 5-on-3 for more than 90 seconds and to think that they're going to kill that off, yeah, there was a lot of criticism, and I think we all play fantasy sports. A lot of us play fantasy football and we're familiar with that where it's really stats driven. And so we get into the habit of trying to put these rosters together in any sport based on statistics. And that's not how you win hockey games. Okay. That's not how you win at that level. And so Bill Guerin and his staff did tremendous work. And it was certainly controversial to not have players like Cole Caulfield, Jason Roberts, and some of those big names not on that team. But you don't need 10 or 15 guys to provide offense. It's got to be some balance. And they knew that. And they knew that there had to be some grit. There had to be some guys that could block shots, that could go out and kill a penalty. And the talent on that penalty kill, to me, hit home the most when we weren't seeing Matt Boldy out there on a regular basis, because watching him on an everyday basis play for the Minnesota Wild, in my eyes, it's one of the best penalty killers I've ever seen for the hometown team. And he couldn't even get on the ice. So Bill Guerin picked the right guys, not the best players for this tournament. And I think he was vindicated with the result we saw culminate with that gold medal yesterday, because again, without the chemistry they clearly had on and off the ice, and without the grit that they showed and the special teams that really rose to the occasion when it mattered most, they don't take home gold.
Well, and I think if you look in, I'm curious what you think, Kevin. Canada's team, probably the most pure roster skill wise, right? Again, McKinnon, Celebrini, McDavid, Crosby. I mean, Cale Makar, go down that roster and you're like, holy cow, this is just pure talent. The U.S. had talent, but not to the level necessarily of Canada, again, as that pure skill set. And I think that was really interesting to see how Bill Guerin probably recognized that. Like, you're not going to beat them with necessarily the one-on-one matchups. You're going to have your fourth line guy step up. You're going to have to maneuver different players. And that's what made them so successful, especially and particularly against Canada.
Yeah, I think, Bill Guerin realized going into this tournament that if you wanted to trade punches and try to outscore Canada 6-5, you likely weren't going to beat them. And so, clearly they knew that they had to have a group of guys that would go out there and every shift, even as star players on their team, even though most of these guys are top 6 players on their roster, go out there and know that a winning shift sometimes means that you go out there and you shut down the opposition's best for 45 seconds and get your butt to the bench, that you play physical and try to grind them down. And even if, again, the U.S. won the hockey game and you never apologize for goaltending. But if you look at the analytics from the gold medal game, the expected goals were 6-2 Canada. Even with all that being said, this is still a remarkable upset in my eyes. And, tip of the hat to Canada because they played a great game. And they did so without Crosby and Morrissey. Morrissey, one of their top weapons on the blue line, and Crosby, their best faceoff guy. And boy, did faceoffs matter yesterday as I watched that game. And early on, the U.S. kept having to ice that puck, especially in the middle period. And I'm thinking, man, you keep playing with fire with these defensive zone faceoffs. And eventually it did lead to a goal by Canada. But the fact that Canada played the game they played, and I know they're disappointed. The whole country's devastated. You and I both know how much it matters to everybody north of the border. I still thought they put out a remarkable effort in that game. And, again, without Connor Hellebuck in goal, they likely win the gold medal. And so you have that eerie crossover with Jim Craig 46 years ago to now Connor Hellebuck is what we watched yesterday.
I love my goalies. I love to be hard on them, but I love to celebrate them even more. And Connor Hellebuck has been one of my favorite goaltenders to watch when he's not playing the Minnesota Wild. And I think that's where the U.S. team always had that edge. Their goaltending and their defense, I think, were very, very strong. And you saw it again. But Connor Hellebuck, man, oh man, do you feel like he kind of had that monkey off his back? There's been a lot of criticism up from Winnipeg fans that he can't perform in the playoffs. He's not good enough to help get this team there. Well, I certainly would say I would love to have him in net for me come any high pressure situation after what we witnessed for him claiming gold for the U.S. yesterday.
Yeah, I wonder how much there'll be a ripple effect from this for him personally in his career because, there has been criticism. And if you look at the numbers, rightfully so, with what he and the Jets have done in the regular season compared to the postseason. However, as far as Connor Hellebuck goes, this was by far the biggest game he has ever played in. And so the preparation that he did to come to this moment and to play as relaxed and as confident as he did speaks to the maturation that he's clearly had. Goaltending is a position where you get way too much credit when you win and way too much blame when the team loses. And he's had to deal with some of that criticism in a place like Winnipeg, where they're like the Green Bay Packers. They're the only thing in town. And so there's a lot of pressure that goes along with that position. And so I just could not be happier for him and seeing some of the celebrations and interviews with him specifically after that game. It sure did feel like, another layer, another step up in his journey. He's won those Vezina trophies. And I think this year it might be difficult because Winnipeg's kind of put themselves behind the 8 ball in terms of making the postseason in the West. It's going to be hard for them, I think, to get in. But the next time he plays in a postseason, I'm certain, Jesse, he'll be better because of what he did throughout the Olympics, but most specifically what he did in that big spot against Canada.
Similarly, and I had asked Marcus Foligno this yesterday. You were there when we were catching up with some of the guys following the gold medal win. The confidence and the experience that Brock Faber, Matt Boldy, and Quinn Hughes now have coming back. And I think Moose nailed it by saying, they played in this high pressure situation that none of us have ever had to experience. Yeah, we haven't had the opportunity. There's been no Stanley Cup deep runs, right? There hasn't been these moments for the gold medal. Now these three guys who are already incredibly talented players on the Minnesota Wild roster are bringing this with them. How much do you think that's going to really help buoy this squad, Kevin, with 24 games left in the regular season as they head into the playoffs?
Well, it certainly can't hurt, right? When you look at that top pairing with Faber and Quinn Hughes together on the ice, certainly they're going to be even more confident now. When you look at the evolution of Matt Boldy, we have seen him get better and better week by week, month by month, and certainly year by year. And the common denominator for me is just how hard these guys work, and they're tireless. Now we're just getting to know Quinn Hughes, but Faber and Boldy specifically have always been ultra talented players. Mm-hmm. What I love about these two guys is the way they work and how much they put into what they do. And, you saw that with Matt Boldy, even during the Olympics, that solo time on the ice before the game with the stick handling and staying after practice to work on his craft, which we've seen day after day, kind of like Kirill Kaprizov. It's kind of been infectious. And then I look at it with John Hines and the role that he played, a big part of that penalty kill for Team USA, making big decisions leading into the tournament and seeing the team go out there and perform the way they did. And obviously Bill Guerin and his staff all the way through. It's going to give this organization a huge shot in the arm. And I think between now and the trade deadline, it's fascinating to see what they're going to do with this. And then from that trade deadline to the end of the season to that first round matchup, which likely ends up being against the Dallas Stars, a lot of pressure involved with that too. But I think having gone through it now for months and into this past weekend specifically can only help. I mean, the big winner outside of the game of hockey and outside of course, all the fans of the red, white, and blue yesterday, you looked at one organization in specific leaving the Olympics yesterday on the men's side. It was the Minnesota Wild. There's no doubt about it.
I love how strong Matt Boldy has truly become on the puck and how well his 200-foot game has really transferred. Defensively, he was so good. And this year we've seen that too in the Minnesota Wild, but I thought for Team USA, that part of his game has just really grown. I've always been a big Matt Boldy fan. I've known that he had this in him. I loved the pick in 2019 when they took him at number 12. I thought that was the right move. But just in general, Gorgie, just that maturity that he now has. And again, how he's been able to use his body, which I credit Joel Eriksson-Ek with helping him find that a little bit. I think when he started being on a line with Eki last year, I was like, oh, that's transferring over. All of a sudden, Boldy's a little bit more physical, a little bit heavier. What have you seen from Matt Boldy in particular as he heads toward 50? We're on the countdown. We're big on Bardown Beauties here, Kevin. Matt Boldy to 50 goals, no matter what, if not more. And he's well on his way there. But what have you seen from Bolds in particular that makes him that really, really second piece, that 1-2 punch with Kirill Kaprizov?
Well, I'll start with the 50 because Bill Guerin made that prediction a year and a half ago, long before anybody talked about it. And it felt like it was an awfully bold prediction. And it feels like right now, to your point, there's a real shot he gets there this year. It's all about Matt Boldy working to evolve his game. The big criticism the first couple of years he made a splash in the National Hockey League, you could see the talent from the first time he wore a Wild sweater in Boston, hometown team, game-winning goal against the Bruins on national TV. This kid is different. He's built different. He's a really special player. But again, the critics would say he wouldn't take his game to the middle of the rink. He played far too much to the exterior part of the rink. That is completely flipped. He is so much better now in traffic, on the wall, in the trenches, going to the middle. That's been Matt Boldy taking his game to another level. There's been a lot of work off the ice to get him there, and he puts that time in. He's the most humble, confident, or cocky guy I've ever met because he's a team-first guy. He refuses to talk about himself. You saw it play out in that interview after the first intermission yesterday. He will never take credit. Lucky play, teammate this, teammate that. But when you get to know Matt, and when you're around him every day like we are and you travel with this guy, he is an extremely confident young man. That serves him very well. The hard work and the confidence come together, and we're seeing a player right now start to realize, and I think it happened last year at the Four Nation where the light bulb went on and Matt Boldy realized that not only can he go out there and survive best on best with the best players, facing the best players, but I'm one of the best players. And from that point on, to me, he's been a completely different player. And the neat argument right now for all of us as Wild fans, forever in the last 5 or 6 years, every conversation was, Kirill Kaprizov is the best player on the Minnesota Wild. Open and shut, mic drop, it's over.
Yeah.
Now you get Quinn Hughes, and well, maybe Quinn Hughes is the best player, and you can make the case. I will tell you right now, if I'm picking the best player, even the MVP so far of this season on the Minnesota Wild, it ain't Kaprizov, it ain't Quinn Hughes, it's Matt Boldy. He might be their best player, and that really says something to me because I couldn't have said that a year ago.
I love it. I love to see the way that he's in the with all of the physical success and steps up. It's also the consistency. Like mentally, he's just locked in, right? That consistency, I think, has been one thing that's plagued him throughout the course of the career as he takes these big dips up and down. This year, that's been completely erased with the exception of a quick blip of an injury, right? Where I think everything's fine there. I'm loving it. I do. It gives the Minnesota Wild exactly what they've been begging for, to have one really good line, but then, now you've got Matt Boldy and Joel Eriksson Ek to try to slow down. I mean, it's incredible to have a good, solid foundation of a top six forward for the Minnesota heading forward.
I think if you're going to make a run at a cup in this league, you can't be a one-man band. You can't have one line that tries to carry the offense. Teams are too good with the video work now. They're prepared. They can shut down basically one line anywhere. You've seen it now with the depth that the Panthers certainly have. Before them, it was the Tampa Bay Lightning. Even the last two cups, seeing the Oilers survive in the West, when they were able to split up McDavid and Draisaitl, how tough it was for teams to defend them. When you get to the power play, different circumstance, you're going to load them up and you're going to have a lot of fun doing that. But you've got to have multiple lines, multiple players that can take over for stretches of games in those series. And for Minnesota right now, to have not only those three superstars, but you can certainly argue that maybe their most impactful player on a nightly basis because of everything he does is Joel Eriksson Ek. You've got so many different layers of talent on this hockey team. So I think Bill Guerin is going to sit back. He's going to let the dust settle and the emotions settle from this incredible run with Team USA. And then he's got maybe, what do we have? A couple of weeks here till the trade deadline. And then he's really got to take a long, hard look at what he wants to do. And I think a lot of us as analysts are torn because we love the 1-2 punch in goal. And Jesper Wallstedt is somebody we do not want to see leave. And I'll be the first to say, I don't want to see that happen. But I'm just going to sit back and trust Bill Guerin because I go back to this every time. He's been on Stanley Cup teams. He's been a part of Stanley Cup championships as a manager with Pittsburgh. And now we watch what he did with Team USA. At some point, you just got to trust that this guy and his staff know what they're doing. And so you put your heart aside and say, if he's going to have to move one of their big pieces, which would likely be the goaltender, then I'm going to let Billy D do what he has to do, and we're going to see where it plays out.
It's a great time to remind you, sodastick.com in Billy G We Trust t-shirts. If you guys ever want to get in on that, they've got tourney swag coming up as the boys high school state tournament is starting up here in just a few weeks, plus all of your team oriented gear. We love, you got some Soda Stick garb. You've got your own, what's your specialty, Kevin, that you have? Toss of it. Thank you, Kevin. Or what do they say?
Thank you, Gorgie, is the t-shirt that Soda Sticks put together right as the break was coming, that Nashville game, kind of the catchphrase that you get at the end of the interview, which is kind of fun. Although, of course, if it's Foligno, it's thank you, K-Train, which I love. No, it's cool, and it's fun to be a part of that, and we've seen so many different, Wild-related t-shirts come together. I think this team's got some real juice. I think the fans are all in. The building's been unbelievably full. I think you go back to Quinn Hughes. What was it, December the 12th when that move happened? There was a little bit, football has a part of that, but there was a little bit of like, ooh, there's some empty seats here. There's some empty seats there. That's no longer the case. It's become a tough ticket to get. And after what we watched yesterday and where I think this team is going, it's going to be a very tough ticket down the stretch and into the playoffs, which, makes me smile because we work in that building. And when it's full, not many better in this league.
Well, and there are a couple of things then too. One with Team USA, do you think there's going to be a fatigue? Right now, we don't know when those players are going to be joining us. I imagine John Hynes will probably come ahead of the players. Players have some obligations or requests of them. But their first game back in Colorado on Thursday, which is going to be a quick one to tune up for. When do you think that we're going to see those guys return to the team? There's an off day for the Wild today, Monday. practice tomorrow, practice Wednesday before travel, but then you've got a Thursday and Friday back to back. What do you think we can expect from Fabes, Boldy, and Hughes in particular?
A lot of conversation throughout the league of how this is going to play out because there's a huge storm on the East Coast. Flights are being canceled left and right. The president would love to have the guys come to the White House tomorrow, Tuesday. And these guys have games starting Wednesday for the Wild. It's Thursday and Friday on the road at Colorado and Utah. I don't think we're going to see them at practice at all this week, including that travel day Wednesday. And I would think they'll play in both those games on the road. But again, I don't know if it's a guarantee with some of the logistics of getting them out east and then getting them back and getting them rest. John Hines hinted that they had a plan in place before this tournament, and with all different paths to getting back and getting these guys the rest they need. And I think for Minnesota, Jesse, not only this week with 3 games in 4 nights, but in the final 6 weeks of the season, unless I'm reading those standings wrong, unless I'm completely off my my analysis here, it sure looks like about a 99% chance that Minnesota and Dallas are going to play in the first round. I think Colorado's going to win the division. I think right now it looks a little bit deceiving because Minnesota's within 5 points, but Colorado's, I think, got 3 games in hand. So I think at some point, if you're Bill Guerin, if you're John Hines and that coaching staff, you got to be smart, because the one thing I know, if you're going to try to run the gauntlet and beat 2 of the best 3 teams in the league in consecutive series, likely Dallas and then Colorado, and then, oh, by the way, likely a team like Vegas in that conference final, you're going to have to be healthy and you're going to have to be rested and ready to go. And if you're locked in to a match with Dallas, I don't know if I go all in on just trying to get home ice in that series, because I really don't believe it's that big a deal. And I would rather see this team rested and healthy. And so I wonder how they're going to play this out. And I know that, you don't see a lot of load management in the National Hockey League. That's why we love that compared to the NBA. But I'd be very surprised if some of these teams, but specifically this team here in Minnesota, didn't maybe use some caution here down the stretch.
It's probably not a bad plan, right? Again, there's got to be such a level of fatigue emotionally and physically from the U.S. players, right? Like, that's a big high to come down from. And we saw the boys; they were having a good rowdy time last night. Including Hughes. I think he was having probably the best time, at least documented.
Got to keep that microphone away from these guys when they've been overserved. But yeah, it was good fun. That's the beauty of social media. Hearing Micah Ruzioni get interviewed, how different it was in 1980. He said, until we really got back to DC to go see the president and saw the media and all the attention, we were kind of, in Lake Placid, really sheltered from all of that. And it's so different now, where you've got cameras inside the locker room right after the game. You've got, video of their party at the headquarters for USA at the Olympic Village and all the stuff you're talking about. We feel like we're right there with them. It can be really good, but again, it can also put guys in a weird spot. So they were having a great time, rightfully so. I think these U.S. guys, specifically the players we're talking about that make such an impact on a nightly basis for the Wild, are probably going to have a little bit of a hangover in terms of their play and the emotion and everything tied into the 3 games and 4 nights. I'll be very curious to see how they play that out. But the bottom line is they've earned a great spot in the standings. We forget, because it's been so long, they had won 5 straight games into the Olympic break. And so they've earned the chance maybe to rest some guys and maybe spread that lineup out a little bit and maybe, let this kind of thing settle in a little bit before they make their big push, try to play their best hockey in April, and then ramp up for that matchup with Dallas.
One final thing I wanted to chat with you about before we go. You had mentioned the Jesper Wallstedt speculation that he is going to be the big mover. And we've talked about it before on the Bardown Beauties podcast, how he's going to yield the biggest return. That is why that is in contention. And because you had the good goaltending tandem of Filip Gustavsson and Jesper. Now, based on Filip Gustafsson's performance at the Olympics, do you think that changes anything? It wasn't necessarily poor, right? But it wasn't outstanding. It wasn't what I think a lot of people had expected from Filip Gustavsson, given what we've seen him do here in Minnesota this season and last season. Do you think that's any different? Do you think that was kind of a blip, that maybe we're overreacting to how Filip Gustafsson had played and how Sweden had ultimately performed in general, or what are we thinking there? And also, what did Filip Gustafsson say about my jacket? Did he love it or did he hate it?
He hated your jacket. It was very frontal of you to wear the red, white, and blue in front of some of these guys from Sweden yesterday. And I'm glad that he let you know just how he felt, but we could be overreacting, but he didn't play well. I'll be the first to admit, like, if you watched it and did so as an analyst, it wasn't his best performance. It's nothing to panic about. I do believe those circumstances sometimes can get a little bit blown out of proportion. And I think Billy's got a ton of confidence in him, and he did the contract extension for a reason. That being said, if you're the Minnesota Wild and if you're Bill Guerin and you're looking at some of those options at trade deadline, it's got to give you just a little bit of cause, right? And, you look at last year and the impact that Marc-Andre Fleury had, and you remember that in that series against the Vegas Golden Knights, in a game I still think the Wild felt like they should have won, Game 5 in Sin City. Remember, after 2 periods, Gustafsson had to pull himself because he was sick, which also happened at the Four Nations tournament last year. I think he's always been a better goalie when he's got somebody there with him to push him. Mm-hmm. And so the big risk to me would be, obviously, you spent a first-round draft pick and developed this kid in Jesper Wallstedt into what looks like a very, very good NHL goalie. Are you willing to throw that out there as a chip at trade deadline and risk that now you just have one guy that has yet to take you where you need to go? Big risk, right? And Billy Guerin gets paid the big money for making those big decisions, but it's a tough call. I believe the Wild are a better team with that 1-2 tandem, but you can only play one guy, Jess. And if you got a guy that you believe in and you can get a frontline center, a guy like Robert Thomas who plays in St. Louis, that might be tempting for the Wild.
You on the Robert Thomas? I'm on the Robert. I love Robert Thomas. I think
he's fantastic. Well, the thing, again, Trocheck's a nice player, and he showed that as a part of the gold medal push that culminated yesterday, but he's a lot older. He's in his 30s, where Robert Thomas is in his mid-20s and has got a lot more tread on that tire. Right-handed shot, centerman, face-off guy, power play guy. There's a lot to like about Thomas. But, man, I'm telling you, this team might be good enough the way they are right now. They just might be when they're healthy. If Hartman's going to play like he did last year in the playoffs, and you've got Ek going, and now Yurov is taken, certainly from what we saw in training camp to where we are right now, ready for the stretch run. He's a completely different hockey player. And, oh, by the way, you've got an Olympian and Nico Sturm up the middle as well. I don't know that they're not good enough right now to make a run. We know how good that group of defensemen is. When they're healthy and Brodin's going to be back here before too long, that's as good a group of defensemen as you can get in this league. I just mentioned the centers. And again, this is a team that's always got those star-studded wings in Kaprizov and Boldy. I don't know, man. I feel like they're pretty damn good right now. But again, I'm not making the call. That's up to Billy G and his staff.
Well, and Billy G's not going to overpay. And the Robert Thomas division tax that will probably come with it from St. Louis scares me a lot, right? Like, I don't love what that asking price. And even Trocheck, I think the way that the Panarin deal ran out where New York wasn't in charge, they can be in charge of the Trocheck deal. So I worry that they're also going to try to pull a lot more than is probably worthy. So part of me, as much as, yes, we could use that centerpiece, right? We could, for 25 years, we've been saying we could use that centerpiece here in Minnesota, right? However, I could see Bill Guerin sitting idle and saying, nope, we're good. We're pretty, because they are pretty darn complete. They are pretty good where they
look good to me.
They look, Quinn Hughes, man, Quinn Hughes.
Yeah, what a tournament he had, right? I mean, it was really cool to see the impact he had shift by shift, kind of mirror what he brings to the Wild, because every time he's on the ice playing for Minnesota, it feels like they're on the attack. They're efficiently leaving the zone, and they are in attack mode. The fact that he was able to bring that same impact on that stage against all those teams, but specifically Team Canada, tells me we have an extraordinary player. And I think all of us knew he was good, right? I mean, he's a household name. He had won a Norris Trophy, but he was playing in Vancouver, man, at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. We didn't get to watch him on a regular basis. And when you watch this kid up close every day, practice, game night, he's incredibly special. And he's got a skill set that not many have. The way he can pass the puck, top 5% in the league, right? Like, this is a really, really good hockey player. So Yeah, it's been really fun to see the way he kind of took charge in the Olympics. He was really, really good, and obviously so was his brother. And so this summer, no matter what happens in the playoffs this year, and certainly if they make a run, it won't hurt. But if they can get Quinn re-signed this summer before the following season starts, then the conversation shifts to how soon before Jack Hughes ends up in a Wild sweater, and wouldn't that be cool?
And how pricey is Quinn Hughes? I do want to talk about, speaking of money and banking, how about North American Banking Company, Kevin Gorg? They are my new favorite bank. We love North American Banking Company. They made transitioning over to a new bank so easy. They've got online and mobile opportunities. Plus, when I want to talk to a person face-to-face, I get to head into any of their 6 Twin Cities locations. Can't go wrong. I could not be more thrilled to have made the decision to switch over to North American Bank. Go to nabankco.com. That's nabankco.com, or visit a location near you. They are member FDIC equal housing lender. North American Banking Company, Kevin Gorg, just enlightening you on that. Bank on points from Quinn Hughes, and maybe he can put that paycheck in his own account at North American Bank.
I'll gladly trade bank accounts with Quinn Hughes. And for a mom like you that's trying to balance the budget, make sure the kids have the meals ready to go, make sure they've got everything they need for all their sports and activities, great to have a bank on your side, no doubt about it.
We love it. Final question before I let you go. Carry on about your day. Again, we have kind of a nice little day off, which is not too shabby.
Beautiful.
First game back in Colorado. We know how those have turned out. Very tense, very high pressure, very fun from a fan perspective. How do you think Thursday is going to go? Because the Avalanche also have some Olympians returning that were key on the non-golden side, more on the silver side. Side note, did you see Nathan McKinnon's reaction to getting that little stuffy after the medals? I don't blame him. I love it. That's
what
hilarious.
Are we doing with these stuffed animals? It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I mean, these guys just put their heart and soul on the ice for 60 minutes plus. They've already got the silver medal, and they've gone through that whole song and dance, and now we're going to hand them a stuffed animal. I loved his reaction
Why are we not
because
doing it at the same time. Like,
I might have thrown it back at the person. I'm not kidding you. I thought it was stupid. I don't know why we put these players in those positions. And the poor video is going to become some kind of a GIF and live on forever. But I don't know what we were doing. To your point, Colorado has to play Wednesday in Utah. I'll be shocked. I will be surprised if they end up playing some of their go-to guys in Wednesday. I think they will rest them on Wednesday. I'd be surprised if both McKinnon and Makar played in that game, and maybe even Brock Nelson might get the night off in Utah, come back and have a full lineup for Minnesota in that second of back-to-backs for them. Super weird how the league, and again, the NHL's got to do what they got to do. They want to give their league a chance to shine on that big stage, which they certainly did, and they're going to get a ton of juice from it. But to come back as soon as Wednesday night, when most of these players aren't flying back till Monday or Tuesday, and some are going to the White House, it to me seems like you're putting these players in a bad spot. And then to have most of these teams have a back-to-back game and 3 games in 4 nights on the weekend, like Minnesota, like Colorado, I don't know, man. You're asking an awful lot. So I'll be very curious to see how these teams manage the minutes, the games, who's in, who's out. I think it's going to be fascinating to watch. And I think once we get back to that second week, it'll kind of all catch up and we'll be back to normal. But I think this first week could be a little bit tricky.
Yeah, we had talked about on the women's side it's exciting because people can go follow the PWHL. On the men's side, you've always had the NHL, but that first little bit back, it's slower, much slower pace than what you just witnessed.
100%.
Olympics. So we'll see. So if I'm doing the Beauties preview, who am I picking to win on Thursday then?
Well, I mean, you've got to go with your heart, and, your heart always leads you to a wild victory. So you'll probably have to pick Colorado because, as we've discussed many times here and on social media, your track record isn't great.
It's not bad. This year it's been better.
Great. It's been better. It's been better. I do like when you pick the opponent, though. It's nice.
It sometimes feels better. It's good. I get to go on that team.
Plus, it gets people triggered. So don't you want some of that drama, some of that stuff to kind of tie into the Beauties?
I loved having the time off from social media, just even not talking like hockey. Like I was like, this is nice. Like there's not as much animosity away from Twitter. Who knew?
Yeah, it won't last long.
Never does.
We'll be right back at it. Again, for at least a day, everybody was so happy and so positive.
We didn't even get a day. We got like 10 hours before things kind of divided. But
we got right back to the politics.
Exactly.
And I'll never touch it. I'll never get into it.
No.
I think it's silly. I'm going to celebrate the players, the staff, and what they put together.
Yeah.
It's a day I won't forget. And, it was just great hockey. And I think we're all drawn as sports fans to seeing greatness. And you look at the talent on that stage yesterday, both teams, the way they laid it out there, how much they cared, how much they put into it. The reaction from both the winning and the losing teams after validated how much I was into it, how much emotion I brought to the table on a Sunday morning at 7:00. And just to see the way everybody across North America rallied around that game, and the sports bars and the parties, and then the aftermath. That made me super happy for the game of hockey. And I think we're going to see some of that carry over into the stretch run, but more importantly, Jess, into the playoffs. I think we're going to have more people watching our game, and that is a good thing.
Bill Guerin, world championship victory, first ever. Now he gets the first ever gold medal. The trifecta feels pretty good.
Get that cup. Let's go get that cup.
Let's do it. Kevin, where can people listen to you? I know you're always obviously covering Frost and Wild hockey, but you've got your own podcast too that I'd love for you to share with the world.
Yeah, thanks, Jesse. Wooden Sticks here on the Talk North Podcast Network is where I do my work. Friends of yours for sure. And usually record somewhere on that Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. We get the shows out every Friday. Last week we had Ben Wilson on, who played for the Broad Street Bullies, the Philadelphia Flyers in the late 70s, then played for the Chicago Blackhawks during the early 80s. So there were a lot of tie-ins to the North Stars and some of those old vintage days of the National Hockey League. Likely going to have Pat Micheletti on this week to recap the Olympics and to kind of tap into his unbelievable knowledge, but passion for the game. And again, those shows come out every Friday, Talk North, and it's called Wooden Sticks. Thank you for that, Jesse.
Always. And we'll catch you on TV on the old FanDual Sports Network coming up on Thursday. Thursday
and Friday night, and then Sunday afternoon. I think we're going to celebrate the red, white, and blue. There'll be a really cool ceremony that the Wild will put out there. I haven't seen the details yet, but 4:00 game, 3:30 pregame on FanDuel Sports Network as the Blues come calling. And as I think about that, and as I speak to you right now, I think about Parayko and Binnington sitting there, likely in the starting lineup for St. Louis, having to watch their rivals be celebrated one more time. Boy, that's going to give them a little extra venom or juice for that game as well.
Gonna happen. Binnington, I just said it. So, if he can get into his head just a little bit.
You don't think Ryan Hartman might bring that up a little bit during the game? You don't think Hartman's going to skate by that crease and maybe mention the gold medal game? That is going to be, give me my popcorn. That's going to be some good entertainment.
Ryan Hartman, long live the petty. Long live you, Kevin Gorg. You are the best. Thank you so much for filling in again. Kirsten will be back with me next week. We'll obviously have Beauties previews as the Wilds roll back into town. We will talk to you guys later. Don't forget to check out all the other Score North content, Judd's Hockey Show, Purple Daily, all of that good stuff. We will see you next week. Bye-bye.
There we go.